Hello, hello, Shagathanon here. Welcome to another Rust coding stream. We're doing the Rust roguelike tutorial. Today it's going to be range scrolls and targeting here on the 17th of October 2022, local time 1704. We may push beyond that if time permits, but I don't think it's going to. Let's take a quick look at what we have right now. We do have something weird just happened. Yeah. I don't know what I just saw. Something just happened on my monitor there. Oh, we got an empty room there. A dead end. So we have basic UI in place. We have decent combat. Here we have a potion. I can go in, I can use it. Let's see, lots of enemies in this room. Not sure why they weren't advancing there, but it's okay. Helped me stay alive. Oh, this is gonna be it. Heal. Well, I have more health than before that. Oh, we lose track of them. Yeah, so we have some basic enemies in place, some potions, and I'm dead. So there we go. That's a little recap of where we're at. The last thing we did, we could also drop items and stuff as well, but yeah, that's fine. We don't need to show it right now. So let's get back over to the browser here where we have the next section here, range scrolls and targeting. If we get through this and there's like a lot of time left, saving and loading, I'll do. However, it's actually a longer section than range scrolls and targeting, so we'll see what happens. So let's go ahead and get right to it. In the last chapter, we added items in inventory and a single item type, a health potion. Now we'll add a second item type, a scroll of magic missile that lets you zap an entity at range, using components to derive what an item does. In the last chapter, we pretty much wrote code to ensure that all items were healing potions. That got things going, but isn't very flexible. So we'll start by breaking down items into a few more component types. We'll start with a simple flag component, consumable. And having this indicates that using it destroys it, consumed on use. So we replace the always called entities.delete.expect in our potion use system, which we will rename to item use system. So there's going to be a lot of refactoring here. Hopefully this can be done with without too much trouble, but we'll see how it goes. So let's get started on that. Let's see. We need to go to the component. Whoops. We need to go to the components here, and we're going to add consumable. So we're going to derive a few things. It's going to be a component and a debug and pub struct. And it's just consumable. And that's all we need for that. We'll have to register it as always. This gets pretty brutal as you start adding more and more components. So many to register. And we're going to take the potion use system. Was that in inventory? Where did it go? Here's how we can find it. Well, maybe. Yeah, potion use system. Where is that defined? It is in inventory. I just missed it. Okay, so we're going to refactor that. Not refactor. We're going to rename. This is a type of refactoring. And it's called item use system, correct? Yeah. Okay, so we have item use system. We still have the system in play. But now, instead of deleting, we're going to do... Yeah, we're not really showing how some of this is changing, but I guess we're going to, instead of calling this potion, we're going to call it item. We're not really showing that, unfortunately. But for our system... What do we call potions before? It was an actual component of potions, right? So this is not, this is like a bit of a you're on your own here on this refactor, I guess. So we have something a little bit different here. We say let consumable equal consumables get use item dot item. Or did we just rename? No, I don't think we did. Okay. Do that. And then we'll match consumable. None. Does nothing. Some, which we actually don't care what it is. We do this thing here. If it's consumable, this is how we use the item. And we don't have consumables yet. So it's gonna be yeah, I mean I know it's gonna be added in here, but there's so many. Also, I need my fat arrow. So we could say consumables. And then up here, I could do a read storage. This is honestly not a fan of the way this is set up right here. Because it very much just kind of drops in and just says good luck. So we can add a few things to make this happen. Oh, it's because there's no comma there. Okay. And we've made most things happy, but we don't have something called a use item. So what we're probably going to do is rename this to... We're looking for an item, but the problem I have is I don't know what the item is. Right now, the only items we have are potions. So if we take a look here, again, it's really just like you're on your own, I guess. So we make this component here. Having the item indicates that using it destroys it. So we replace the always called, which I already had, the potion use system, which we renamed item use, with this thing. So we have a use item, which represents the item we're going to use. I get this. And then we end up deleting that item if we use it. So yeah, check if the component has a consumable tag and destroy it if it does. Likewise, we can replace the potion section with a provides healing to indicate that this is what the potion actually does. So in components, we're going to add this provides healing. So we're going to have to do some extra work. And I'm probably going to take a look at how they did their item use system real quick, because there's not, I mean, I could tinker with it until it works, but I want to get an indication of just how they set this up, because I think it should have been a bit of a more guided refactor. If you're like, we're going to make this thing that we know isn't final, but then I'm not going to talk about how it's being refactored. I'm not sure what the item represents again. Are we looking for component? What are we looking for with that? Or not component, consumable. Item use system. Oh yeah, so there's definitely a lot more in here. But what I'm interested in is... Oh, this feels a lot different. Which kind of sucks to figure out exactly what's changing. If wants to drink potion, it looks like is going to be changed with a wants to use item. So it's almost like I mean, right now I can rename this to use item. And the potion doesn't have it. It's on the once used thing. Once drink is the one that owns that. So at some point, I guess we're refactoring that. Let me look for it in here. Yeah, so there's going to be a bit of a change happening in a not far from now, but a little bit away. Okay, we'll take a look at it. I'm gonna let this be mad for a little bit, and we'll push forward and get closer to what they intend. But not happy with the start of this one, because it's very much like, I feel like it's relying on a lot of changes that aren't clear, and some of them rely on the new refactors and stuff that haven't really been discussed. So we'll again see what happens here. Not great. So that's all cool. The next thing we want to do is get this provides healing. And see, what does it mean? Replace the potion section with the provides healing. So the section that gets the potion, I guess, that's not super clear either. We'll see. So we want to make this provides healing component struct with heal amount. So I think that might actually be, let's see. Did we, okay, there's potion, yeah. So instead of potion, I guess we're gonna say provides healing, and it already has heal amount, so everything just, we're gonna change that. And then in our item use system, let's see. I think maybe we want to do this outside of match potion and just do that for consumable in general. And then what we're probably going to do is grab a use item thing here. So we'll see how that fits in a bit. So what we're going to do in our item use system, I guess instead of match potion, we're going to do, okay, yeah, we're going to say let item heals. So let item heals none. This feels like a weird start. I feel like something's just wrong too. Today's been a weird day. Some healer. We're gonna have to do a little bit more to get that to be happy, I think. But because we need to get the item. Oh no, we're not doing that. We're gonna match item heals. Item heals is healing.get use item.item. Yeah, see, this use item has not been explained yet. Healing is going to be everything that provides healing, I would assume. So we'll see how that's broken down in a moment. If it is a healer, then stats.hp equal I32 min stats.max HP stats.hp plus healer.heal amount. Yeah, so healer is going to be all provide healings. So I can actually go here and say healing. And here I can say read storage. Provides healing. And that makes the healing thing happy, but we still need to get use item settled in. Also, I can't type. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do the healing, and then if entity is the player entity, then game log dot push, dot entries dot push. We're going to format something. You drink the blank healing blank HP. And then what are we going to do here? It's a few things. We're going to need names.hp, or why did I say names.hp? Sorry, there is something weird going on with me today. Names.get, use item.item, .unwrap. So we're getting the name of the item that we're using, right? And then we're going to do healer.heal amount. And then that's that. So yeah, we still don't know what use item is. It's going to be everything that wants to be used, basically. So we're going to probably replace wants to drink potion with wants use item. So it's, let's take a look at the components. That's going to be my initial guess here. Wants to drink potion is going to be, what is it called? I saw it earlier. Wants to use item. So we're going to refactor that with wants to use item. Oh, whoops. There we go. Refactor that so everywhere that shows up. And instead of potion, it's going to be item, because we're genericizing that a bit. Let me get back down to where I was at. I had clicked off. Okay. So it cannot find use item here, because instead of drink, it's going to be use item. And I think that should make most things happy. Name does not implement display. It's names.get .name, isn't it? There's an extra .name on there. Yeah, unwrap .name. That's because our component is called name, but it has a field called name in it. So we're basically having to get to that field. Now everything is kind of happy. Healing. We'll get rid of this and everything should map after names. Because we have provide healing twice. So there we go. Now I've made pretty much everything happy. Had to make a few assumptions there, and doesn't feel super clean because of that, but hey, we made it through to the other side. Again, it's not being outlined here, so I'm just kind of making some assumptions based on the fields that we already have in place. So having this item indicates that using it destroys it. So we replace, yeah, we've already done that. Our item system, we just did the item heals thing. So that, and I think the idea is if it's consumable, we just always we do this no matter what. So we don't make it part of the healing logic, because a scroll might also do something. And then rather than writing this more than once, we can make this consumable here. Also, this would be a good spot for an if let. Instead of let consumable equal consumables.get, you do an if let sum consumable equal consumables.get, and then you open up your brace. Actually, then you just need this exact bit here. You'd actually do underscore if let sum underscore, because you're not actually using the consumable. But yeah, just a point. If let would be probably less verbose there. So then drawing that code together for creating a potion and spawner. Yeah, I haven't even thought about the spawner yet. Spawner is still happy, but let's see how the potion stuff looks now. I have a feeling it may be a little borked. Health potion, with the position, with the renderable, with the name, with item. Oh, it needs consumable. That's the only new thing. Okay. Dot with consumable and the heal. So we'll pull that in, and yeah, so we're describing where it is. Hold on. We're describing where it is, what it looks like, its name, denoting that it is an item, it's consumed on use, provides 8 points of healing. It's nice and descriptive, and future items can mix and match. As we add components, the item system will become more and more flexible. There we are. So I like what we have, but I don't like how we got there. It's a little bit of a sloppy refactor because it was missing, the thing here was missing a lot of descriptions on, like, we need to change this, and this is what we're actually modifying here. So I think that could be done a little bit better. Hopefully it was followable from me, but you know, whatever, it's done now. Hopefully it made sense to some degree. So now we're going to describe ranged magic missile scrolls. So we're going to add a few more components. We're going to add ranged and inflicts damage. And this is the point where I, generally don't advocate for copy pasting. I am going to copy these because, I mean, really, it's not, I'm not going to copy a function like this, even though this is just a bunch of dot widths. I'm definitely not going to copy larger stuff where a lot of logic is happening. There's no logic here. We're deriving component and debug for 2 structs. One of them is the range, and another one is how much damage something deals. So that's pretty straightforward. I don't think we need to see me type that out. It's, again, too straightforward. But we will register them as well. Where is that at? Ranged and inflicts damage. So we got both of those in now. And then that's going to let us make a magic missile scroll. So we're going to make a function in the spawner. And I'm going to be a little lazy and copy this bad boy. So instead of health potion, it's going to be magic missile scroll. And we're going to give it position of X, Y, all that's fine. With the renderable, probably going to be, it's going to be this here, okay. It's going to be cyan. I noticed that I had red here on the potion, and I noticed when I was looking at the code a moment ago on the page, it had magenta, so that's why I changed it. Magic missile potion. I like the idea of that, actually. Drinking a potion that causes you to do some attack. That's kind of goofy, but I like that. So it's an item, it's consumable. It does not provide healing. It is ranged with a range of 6. And it is inflicts damage with a damage of 8. And that's, why not? Oh, because I didn't auto-complete it. The way that these get imported when I do the auto import, I'm not a big fan of the way it happens, but it's fine. Kind of like to just lump it into the super. I may change that at some point, but for now it's just, I'm gonna let it keep doing it for now because it still works. I just think it'd look cleaner. Or let them all go under this use crate notation. Or do use superstar and just get everything. Whatever. So yeah, that's it. Pretty straightforward. That lets us make magic missiles now. So it neatly lays out the properties of what makes it tick. It has a position, an appearance, and a name. It's an item that is destroyed on use. It has a range of 6 tiles and inflicts 8 points of damage. That's what I like about components. After a while, it sounds more like you're describing a blueprint for a device than writing many lines of code. We'll go ahead and add them into the spawn list. So we're going to do a roll for the random item. So, do I already have a random item function? Let's see. I don't remember how we were doing it yet. We have random monster. Spawn room. No, we're just doing this here. So we're going to replace health potion with random item. So I'm going to go up and copy random monster, because I think it's going to be pretty similar. But we're just going to spawn a random item at a given location. Random item. And see, this is where like you're modifying code like this that's similar. I don't mind copy pasting. It's where you're writing like new code that's going to be like drastically different. You've seen me do this before anyway. Like just copy and modify a little bit. So here it's going to be, and actually what you could do is even extract out the table. You could extract out this match here into like a closure or something and pass it around. And then you could make a generic like spawn random thing and then feed it the table and just let it do all that work on its own. But we're not going to go through that trouble. So we're going to make the RNG. We're going to roll dice 1, 2. And instead of orc, it's going to be health potion. And then this one is going to be magic missile scroll. And literally nothing else is different. So that's cool, which means not even looking ahead at the tutorial, this is going to be random item. So, and then it says it next. So replace the call to health potion in the item spawning code with a call to random item. If you run the program, you'll now find scrolls as well as potions lying around. The component system already provides quite a bit of functionality. You can see them rendered on the map thanks to renderable in position. You can pick them up and drop them thanks to item. You can list them in your inventory. You can call use on them and they're destroyed, but nothing happens. All right. So let's take a look at it. The health potion will still work because it has the provides healing component, but the other ones won't because the ranged components and stuff aren't doing anything yet. Let's take a look. If we can run, if I didn't break something. Alrighty. Yeah, again, that refactor was a little messy. That's almost the kind of thing that I would consider writing the author and being like, hey, that's a little, it's like there's a lot of implicit steps to that refactor. And then me, I don't know if I should, what I never know is how much I should be jumping ahead. That's why I hesitate to try to just do it on my own, because is there a reason that we're not doing it yet? Would it be better for me to wait? Because there might be something that comes up in a moment that just drastically changes something. That's part of why you don't see me trying to jump too far ahead ever. Despite just doing it for that one function call. I want the scroll, is that it? I can't see what I'm looking at. No, it's a health potion. The screen is too tiny for me. This is my monitor's resolution's too high. There's one. We can drop it. Yep, we can super drop it over and over and we can use it. And nothing happened, so we're good to go. Give me just 1 second here. Alrighty, sorry about that. Just wanted to test that functionality, so now that we see it working, we're going to move on to the next section here. Implementing ranged damage for items. We want magic missiles to be targeted. You activate it, and then you have to select a victim. This will be another input mode, so we once again extend run state in main. So there's probably, what is it? Show targeting. Also, hold on, one more time. The sneeze is real. My God. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna add this show targeting. And it looks like this enum variant actually takes a range and entity, but I don't know this syntax for it. That's more of like a named, that's more of like a struct. I've never done that. So I'll show what I've done. Let's go ahead and take a look at run state. And I'll show what I've done in the past, near the top. So what I've done in the past is we have an enum variant where we want some data associated with it. We would say my variant and then I32. And then that, it's like a tuple, right? It attaches some data, but it's unnamed. So I don't think I knew it was possible to create a named variant. You could also do another one, a string, and a state. Maybe not state. Yeah, not state, because... Oh, string, actually. Yeah, for both, right? Yeah, neither implement copy, but see the idea. You could put as many things as you want in there, but it looks like you can also name them. Show targeting, and then we do range I32 item entity. Yeah, you totally can. Okay, that's pretty useful. It's basically a struct as part of an enum now. That's the way I view it. But you could use... You could already match on structs. But that's interesting. I kind of like that. Let me take a look at something over here. Uh-oh. No, that's fine. There's something looked odd. It still looks odd. Let me reset this thing on my phone. Where I watch the stream. Not watch the stream, but the stream stats. Okay, good. It said I was offline, but I'm not in OBS, so there was a discrepancy there. Alright, so we have the show targeting here now, and it's not currently being used, and we need to use it. So that's the first thing we're gonna do, is probably go ahead and make another match arm here, but let's check out what's actually in the tutorial. So it says we'll extend our handler for show inventory in main.rs to handle items that are ranged and include a mode switch. Okay, so what that means is first we'll go up to show inventory and we'll match on the result. Under selected entity, and then we're going to say, is it ranged? So let is ranged equals self.ecs.read storage, and it's going to be ranged. So we just do like that. And then the other one is going to be is item ranged. Okay, we're going to actually use that. So let is item ranged equal is range.get, and we just get the item entity that we already have here, and gives us an option. Can't we convert an option directly to a bool or something? Like for some reason I thought there was a oh, there is some, right? Is some or is none. I'd almost want to do that, but we'll see how it's being used. Oh, we're doing an if let. Okay. So do we have that intent? We're doing the intent elsewhere. Okay. So before the intent, we're going to say if let sum is item ranged. I'm excited about the if let now. Is item ranged. New run state equal run state show targeting. And it's going to be is item range.range. Okay, that's why, because we're just ripping out the info here, and then this is the item entity. So run state now has that data packed into it, and then otherwise, else. We're going to take all of this here and move it in there. That should be fine. Let mute intent equal ECS, okay. Intent insert, we do the wants to use item there. And then we do the player turn. Okay, yeah, I think that's all good. So what's interesting is we're going to have to use the item elsewhere, right? Because, or rather, like this wants to use item, the intent here, that's going to have to be managed in some other place now, because we still want to have that idea of the intent to use the ranged item, right? Maybe that's what the ranged is doing, I guess, but just trying to break down what's going on here. So, I mean, the actual code is easy to follow, but I'm just trying to see where we're going to go. The code is easy to follow, though. We get the ranged component, and we just check, is there a ranged component? And if there is, we set the new run state to show targeting with a range and an item. And that's it. Like, there's not much more to that. And we took the old code and just put it in the else. So if it's not ranged, we do the wants to use item thing like we've been doing. So then the item use system is going to take control of that. All right. So then in main, where we match the appropriate game mode, it says we can stub in, which usually means it's like a temporary thing. So run state, and it's going to be show targeting, range item, let target equal GUI, ranged target, self CTX range. So we don't have that function yet, but that's fine. What we can do here, by the way, I think, would you do it like this? Yeah, so what you can actually do, and notice range is now underlined. Range is mad because there's no variable called range. What I did by saying :12 here, we're now matching on, we have a match arm here that says run state has to be show targeting and the range value from run state has to be 12. So we're no longer passing this 12 into the match arm, we're actually matching on a range of 12. So when I do this, now that range, we're just capturing whatever range is and pushing it on into the match arm. So that's just an interesting thing you can do. You can do that with structs to match on fields of structs. And I think, would it work here? Yeah, you can do the ... thing. So you can do 12 and then ... and what that does is say, I don't care about any of the other fields as well. Actually, we would do, let's try item ... And yeah, see, it's not passing range in. But like, this is a valid match arm, basically. So just showing a couple different things we could do with this here. So we're going to need this function here. We're going to generate it here in GUI. And I'm going to take a look at what they have. So yeah, it naturally leads to actually writing the range target function, which looks complicated, but it's actually quite straightforward. Well, it looks so complicated that I need to see what the return type is. It's a tuple of item, menu, result, and option point, which I think is going to represent what it is that we're targeting, right? Like where it is that we're targeting, I should say. And then for this, we take in, I'm not going to call that arg, I'm going to call it GS, CTX, and Okay, so, oh, that's fine. I was looking at the wrong thing. And range, I32, yeah. So all that I'm happy with. So now let's go ahead and look at the function itself. The first thing we need is the player entity. Without looking, what is the resource? Read expect. I wasn't trying to look. Oh no, we're doing fetch. Read expect does get us a resource though. So I was actually kind of right, but we're doing gs.ecs.fetch entity. And then we're going to do a couple others of these. Player position. It's going to be a, damn it, you saw that? It's going to be a point, and this is going to be a view shed. And this is going to be view sheds, and we're no longer fetching a resource, we're getting a read storage. I think read expect is, hold on. Where would I look for that? Yeah, read expect is up here. Right, so I was correct in one usage of it, but this is where you use read expect. Okay. Trying to, remember spec stuff as I'm going about, right? Do the import. Don't care how it looks. Not now. So ctx.print color is going to be 50 RGB named. It's going to be RLTK yellow. We're going to have another color, RGB named black. It's going to be select target. We have a space there or not? No space, okay. So we're going to print that out. And then we're going to highlight available target cells. So this is why we need the view sheds, because we need to know what's in our field of view. So let mute available cells equal vec view. So we're going to keep track of what cells are available. Let visible view sheds dot get player entity. If let sum visible, we have a view shed. I'm thinking about something as I'm doing this, and it's actually something really cool and consistent about roguelikes that you don't really get in other games. So the way the view sheds work is that every thing in the game that has a view shed, they behave on like the same algorithms. Maybe they have a farther range than others, but they follow the same algorithms, right? So what I mean by that is in other games, like Metal Gear Solid is coming to mind, you can see on like the radar, you could see the distance or the view cones that the genome soldiers have, like particularly in the first game. You can see the dudes like right in front of you, but if you're out of their vision cone, they can't see you, even if you're like directly in front of them. Now, it would make sense if I'm looking directly at you and you're looking directly at me, we should both be able to see each other unless there's something critically wrong with one of our visions, right? There's a reason for that, partially like fairness and everything. Technology at the time wasn't as good as well. So there are reasons for that. But what I find interesting is that the roguelike, by making it this whole top-down thing without crazy 3D graphics and all that, it seems a lot easier to have a consistency where everybody behaves by the same rules and they can actually dictate what your vision is in a way that doesn't feel, if you did that in a 3D game, it feels fake, it feels forced. But in a roguelike, it feels okay when it's like, oh, that's my field of view. That cone there is what I can see. So you end up with a nice consistency where the player and the enemies both have that limited field of view, and it makes for a, again, very consistent situation, or a very consistent gameplay. So there's a lot of that, and I was talking as I was typing. So we're going to return item menu result, cancel. I got into the zone there for a moment. What is this on? Oh, it's because it thinks it's gonna, yeah, it's trying to return that for loop. So what's happening here if you don't follow why this is red? We have a return here, but in this branch, like if I just say it, if I copied this, just put it right after the for loop, it should be happy. Yeah. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to flow that out and make that the return. And that's why it's red. So the moment we start adding stuff down here, it should also go away. But let's break down what's going on here, especially because I was talking as I was typing. We're going to get this vector of available cells. We're going to get the view shed of the player. This is what's visible. And we do an if let here to get, because it's option, so we do an if let to get the view shed. And it's still called visible. And for the index in the visible tiles of the view shed, we get the distance. And if the distance is less equal to the range from our, yeah, so we're passing range in. If it's less equal to the range, then we set the background to blue. And we push it into our list of available cells. Otherwise, we just don't, yeah, we just, oh, we cancel. Why do we cancel? Hang on. Oh, we cancel because there's no view shed. Yeah. If there's a view shed, we do all this. If there's no view shed, we cancel. Okay. So now that we're done with that, draw mouse cursor. And this is where we should see that for loop go not red. Hopefully, let mouse position equals ctx.mouse position. Yeah, so when I save there, it's no longer mad. Let mute valid target equal false. So we're gonna get the current mouse position from the context. We're gonna initialize a variable to false. My neck is killing me. We're going to loop over all available cells for index in available cells dot iter, and what we're probably going to do is check to see if the mouse position is a valid target. If idx.x equals mouse position dot 0 and idx.y equals mouse dot position dot 1. Oops, not dot. Mouse position 1. Then valid target equal true. And then what we do is a check on I'm curious about one thing, why we needed to save valid target. We'll see what happens. If valid target ctx.set bg mouse position dot 0 mouse position dot 1 RGB named RLTK cyan. If context.left click turn item menu result selected some point new from mouse position 0 and mouse position 1. So yeah, we're saying we've selected, and there's the point that we were supposed to return. Now on the tail end of this if here, if it's not a valid target, else ctx.set bg mouse position dot 0, mouse position dot 1, RGB named, RLTK red, and that's that. If CTX dot left click, turn item menu result, cancel, none. Yeah, that's good. And then in here, it's going to be another item menu result, no response, none. So I think, yeah, I think I made a mistake on one of my, oh no, I think that's fine. No, it's not. Oh, I see why. No, maybe not. Oh, we're not doing this. Yeah, shouldn't be part of the for loop. Oops. Only the valid target thing is part of the for loop. That's why. Okay, so what are we gonna do now? The comment in the code says draw mouse cursor, but I don't see us drawing a cursor. I think it's saying get. I think we're actually getting the, well, we are. We're getting the mouse position. So we already covered this top part. If there's a visible, if there's a view shed, we basically get the view shed and get the available cells from it that are within range. And then we get the mouse position. And what we do is we loop through the available cells and look for a valid target. If we do find a valid target, meaning one of the available cells where the index matches the mouse, then we decide to check, are we left clicking? So we'll set the background to be cyan. And then if we left click, then we will return the selected along with the point where we clicked. Otherwise, if we didn't have a valid target, then we return cancel. What I'm interested in for the moment, however, is, oh, if we left click somewhere that's not a valid target, then we cancel. Right. Otherwise, we just say, hey, no response. We didn't get to do anything. So, yeah, there's a lot there, but it is actually not terribly difficult. Let's take a look back here and see their description. So we start by obtaining the player's location and view shed and iterating cells they can see. We check the range of the cell versus the range of the item, and if it is in range, we highlight the cell in blue. We also maintain a list of what cells are possible to target. Then we get the mouse position. If it is pointing at a valid target, we light it up in cyan, otherwise we use red. If you click a valid cell, it returns targeting information for where you're aiming, otherwise it cancels. Now we extend our show targeting code to handle this. So we got to go back to the to main, where we're doing the run state, and add that code in there. Should be, I was going to say, pretty close to where we're at. So in main, with show targeting, we already doing range target. How are we using that? Wait a minute. Let me double check something. Show targeting range item. Oh, I see what we're doing. Okay. They changed the name. Let result equal. I was just missing it. I was like, why? Why did we change the name? I actually prefer target, but I could see why. Match result.0 GUI item menu result cancel new run state equal run state awaiting input. So basically we're doing a quick little match here. If they don't respond, then we do nothing, because we're still basically waiting, I guess. Item menu result. I should break down what I mean by still waiting, because it's not the same as a waiting input. It is, but it isn't. A waiting input is basically awaiting any player input. And that's where we process player input, like movement and everything. When I say no response here is still awaiting input, if we go back to the function here, we return no response in the case that no target was selected, but we didn't cancel because we didn't click in a bad place, we didn't click in a good place, and we didn't return here with no view shed. So we were able to like make it all the way through the function, but no target was selected, so we say no response. And what that's going to ultimately do is come back in here and call range target again, and it's going to keep checking until it does get a response. So it is still waiting for input, but in this case it's waiting for the range target input. It's waiting for us to click on a cell, essentially. That's the idea. Let mute intent equals self.ecs.write storage. And what are we getting? Wants to use item. See, I told you we were going to have to do this somewhere. Okay, that got sloppy. Will it format? Yeah, there we go. Intent dot insert self dot ecs dot fetch. It's going to be entity wants to use item target result dot one. That's the point. But I was like, I don't think we have some of this stuff. Unable to insert. What is it going to say? Intent. Yeah, so we don't have target on wants to use item. So yeah, they added the field. I was going to say we're going to have to do that, obviously, but and then we do new run state. So new run state equal run state player turn. Now again, remember this player turn here says that the player has taken a turn, which is then what allows the monsters and stuff to do their thing. So we look at player turn, we run our systems, we maintain, and then we do monster turn. So it's okay. Yeah, it's all good though. It's kind of what I was saying. So yeah, player takes turn, that happens, then it goes to monster turn, then it goes back to awaiting input. So that's the basic loop right there, right? Awaiting input. Somehow we're going to get to player turn when we've taken our turn, then we're going to get to monster turn, then we're going to go back. There may be inventories and range targeting and stuff in between, but that's basically it. So components wants to use item, also has pub, target, option, RLTK, point. Why are you mad? Oh, because you now need this as well, so it's probably going to be none. Because we're not actually doing a target here. That's my initial assumption. Yeah, because it's not ranged. Okay. So we'll take a quick look over here at the page. And so yeah, they made the point where they said, what's this target? I had another field and wants to use item in components.rs. And we see exactly what I just showed. So now when you receive a wants to use item, you can know that the user is the owning entity. The item is the item field, and it is aimed at the target. If there's one, targeting doesn't make much sense for healing yeah, so it's aimed at the target if there is one. So now we can add another condition to our item use system. If it inflicts damage, apply it to the target cell. Well, let's go to the item use system and let item damages, okay. Let item damages equal inflict damage dot get use item dot item. So if it inflicts damage applied to the target cell, we need to bring in the inflicts damage stuff. And then that means we're going to need that right there. Inflict. Okay, we'll change that to... Why did I get rid of it? Oh, because I was trying to save, I guess. We'll rename that. Item damages. Match item damages. None. Some damage. Okay. A fat arrow. And then what do we have? Let target point equal use item dot target dot unwrap. I guess at that point we're assuming that it has one. Like, if all of our logic is right, we can guarantee that it has one, but still don't like the unwraps. Index equal map dot xy idx target point dot x target point dot y. The way I look at it is, if I were playing a game and I tried to use an item and it like messed up in how it was grabbing the target or something, I wouldn't want it to crash. I would rather it literally just do nothing. And even if it like burns my item, I mean, that would kind of suck. But I mean, hopefully what we do here is, if we caught, hey, there's a problem here, we just bounce out of here without using the item. I'd rather that happen than the game crashing and potentially, you know, losing a bunch of progress. So why is tile content not found? Do we not have the map? We'll take a look at it in a moment. So suffer damage. New damage. It's going to be mute suffer damage. Mob. Damage. If entity is the player entity, not what I wanted. If the entity is the player entity, then let mob name equal names dot get mob unwrap. Let item name equal names dot get use item dot unwrap game log dot entries dot push. We're gonna format. You use blank on blank inflicting blank HP. I would rather say blank damage item. And what do we need here? Item name dot name, mob name dot name, damage dot damage. We're missing a couple things here. So I made a mistake somewhere. We can't find map. We need to pull map in. And then after that, used item equal true. So it says this checks to see if we have an inflicts damage component on the item, and if it does, applies the damage to everyone in the targeted cell. If you cargo run the game, you can now blast entities with your magic missile scrolls. Well, that's not true because we don't have the map here. So what I can do is say read expect map. I don't know if it needs to be mutable. I didn't know. Okay, maybe. Used item. Are we setting a used item somewhere? What the hell is the used item doing? Like, I could make it, but we're not actually doing anything with it. The only other times it comes up in the page are like way below. So we're not doing anything with it. It comes up, it's twice here, but then it comes up 3 more times in the rest of the page. That's literally the only other times it shows up. So what we're doing, what we're supposed to be doing here is at the top of the for loop, before we do anything else, we say let mute used item equal true. Let me see where it's being used. So if it heals, it's being used there. I may be jumping a little ahead on this, but there's no explanation for... I mean, I assume it's going to be used for deleting, right? Unconsumable. But there was no even mention of it, and it's like, here's this variable. This section could use some work. This section has had a little bit of a few issues like this, where it's here's a variable, and I'm not going to show you how it's being used. Like, I assume it's going to be used with this. We only delete it if it's used, but it's just odd. So in the heal thing, first thing we do here in the sum variant, in the sum arm, used item equal false. And then probably the last thing we do in the sum, entity player entity, yeah, it's after that, used item equal true. Okay, so that one does it. Item damages does it. And then other stuff that we haven't done does it. And then down here, just as I said, if used item, then all of this. Straight through the match. So we say let consumable, then we say match. Sum, which closes there, the match closes there, the if closes there, and then we have one more. Okay, good. Whew, that is funky. So now we don't have suffer damage, because it hasn't been used here before. Yeah. So we'll get suffer damage. What are we just gonna call it? Mute suffer damage. And so that means it's going to be a write storage. Okay, who else is mad? Apparently I did that twice. Alrighty, that's a lot of fun stuff there, but I think we're good to go. So let's take a quick look over what I have here. Let's go back here real quick, actually. So this is what I was doing. This is why used item came up. We're adding that condition to the item use system. If an item damages, then do the match and actually perform that work of doing the damage. So we get the target point from the use item target. We get the map index. We set use item false, and then later on, if it is used, we set it true. I guess if there's nothing there, yeah, if there's nothing in the tile, I was going to say, well, it would always be, except in the case where the iterator is empty. So if there's tile content is empty, then we won't set used item back to true. Then we'll say suffer damage, new damage. We give it mute, and mute suffer damage. Hold on. That's the that's all the components. I have to double check what that function does. Let's click over to mine so I can zip around things. Yeah, it is the storage. Okay. It is our storage for new damage. Let's take a look at the function. So the victim and the amount of damage. So the store, we try to get the victim from the storage, and if they exist, we push damage into that vector, right? Otherwise, we make a suffer damage component. That's why we're not making the proper component right there. We're actually calling this function because we don't know if, yeah, we don't know if this vector exists and everything. So this handles all that logic for us. So that covers that. And then what is the entity again? It's just coming from, where is it? If the player, yeah, so an entity, this is still called once drink. It should be once use item, right? Yeah. Or something like that. That'll be good enough to for now to get us through it. And yeah, in this case, there's no real reason to set that. This was from the code, however, but there's no real reason to set that. But I'll leave it. That was directly from their code. So back to this, the suffer damage. If the one using the item is the player, then we get the mob name, which is the thing from the map tile, which is what we see right here, map tile content. We get the mob name, we get our item name. We use all that to say you use blank on blank, inflicting blah HP. And then we set it true. Unused item. That way the item can be removed, consumed. All right. So yeah, their code says this checks to see if we have an inflicts damage component on the item, and if it does, applies the damage to everyone in the targeted cell. If you cargo run the game, you can now blast entities with your magic missile scrolls. And let's give that a try. Just have to find one, right? So far, this is a really empty map. Ooh, that's a cool little feature. That is not what I want, but I'll take it and I'll use it. Here it is, don't kill me. Okay, now I need to find someone to use it on. Ooh, another one. So can I do this? So magic missile scroll. I can't, we're out of range. If I click over here, it should cancel. Now, there's another one in there. We just can't see him right now. Boom. Hit him for 4 health. That's not very much, is it? Kind of crappy. Boom. Hit him again. He's dead. I mean, it worked. It did what it was supposed to. Can't complain. Alrighty. Let's get back to it. Next section. We're over halfway done. It's not actually that bad. This checks to see if we have inflicts damage. Yeah, we already did that. Okay, so now we're going to introduce area of effect. We'll add another scroll type, Fireball. It's an old favorite and introduces AoE, area of effect damage. We'll start by adding a component to indicate our intent, area of effect. Once again, I'm going to copy this because do I really need to go type pub struct area of effect, pub radius I32? No. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just copy that in. And what they didn't mention this time is to register the component. I'm not saying that as a criticism. Normally, they got to the point where they were putting it in parentheses or whatever, like, and remember to register it. But it's getting to the point where I think they're assuming that you know to do that. So I'm just calling it out. Not saying it as a criticism. Saying it more as a learning thing, right? That we should already be doing that. So we'll add a component to indicate our intent. We'll extend the random item function to offer it as an option. So now we need Fireball Scroll. So we're going to roll a 1, 3. And then we'll write the Fireball Scroll function. So these should be pretty easy. A little bit of copy pasta, my favorite kind of pasta. So on random item, let's see, we'll copy Magic Missile. Say Fireball Scroll. And this is going to be, instead of Magic Missile, Fireball, we're going to do orange. All caps. It's going to be the same symbol. So almost everything else is going to be the same. It's still going to inflict damage. Wait a minute. Oh, that inflicted 4 damage because their defense, right. I was like, wait a minute, it should be 8. Same range. But now we're going to do that. And now we're going to do area of effect. Instead of damage, it's radius. And it's 3. Now we're going to go up to the spawner, the spawn function. And it's going to be a 1, 3. And we do 2. Fireball Scroll. Literally nothing else has to change. There we have it. So now they spawn. We don't actually have to do anything else to get them to show up in the game. So that's nice. That's simple. But we're going to have to add code to make the area of effect work. So notice that it's basically the same, but we're adding an area of effect component to indicate that it is what we want. If you were to cargo run it now, you'd see them in game and they'd inflict damage on a single entity. So clearly we must fix that. In our use item system, we'll build a new section to figure out a list of targets for an effect. We have targeting now. So in our use item system, let's see, item damages. I guess, do we want to do that first? I don't know how it's being used yet. Let mute targets is actually, I'm not seeing it. Oh, it's up. Yeah, it is up at the top. So we do want to do that first. Okay. I was thinking it probably should be first because we need to know if it's ranged, we then apply it to all targets rather than just one tile. So here we are. Targeting. So see, I made that assumption and I double checked, but I think this should be made more clear here, because to me, I was thinking ahead a little bit, and it's like, well, we don't want to do damage and then do this whole target thing, and like, an order does matter here. And I think it would be helpful to make that more clear. When it says we'll add this new section, you know, where are we adding it? You know, I think that should be a little more clear. So we're gonna make this target's vector. I feel like I'm being very, very strict today, very critical today. I don't know why, but I mean, I also feel like there have been a lot of issues. I feel like if you were doing this without a lot of experience, some of these things would like legitimately be blockers. If you're not comfortable going in and double checking in their code or like whatever, or making this assumption and saying targets probably has to go at the top or above other things that might do multiple targets. If you're not making those assumptions, you'd have to refactor your code later, or it could just be confusing. So we're gonna get the target, let area effect AOE.get use item.item match area effect none. So there's a single target in tile. Let idx equal map.xy index. We're gonna go target x and target y. And then we're gonna do what we did earlier, right? For mob in map.tile content idx.iter. So by the way, for the map, I didn't actually look at how they did it in their code. I just said, we're gonna just add this in because I know how to do it. But they may have done it in a different way somehow, and it may end up needing to be changed later, but it wasn't explained, so I just went with something. That's what I mean by there's a lot of things I've been critical of, but that could be a stopper for somebody that isn't comfortable making those assumptions and stuff. I still think it's overall a good tutorial, though. So there's our none, where it's not an area of effect. Now, if it is an area of effect, AOE, let mute blast tiles, equal RLTK, field of view, and it's going to be target, it's going to be area effect.radius, and this is going to be the map. Okay. Oh my god. But it's actually the map, or okay, it is. It's a dynamic thing where it's based off of because we did the we implemented map for that. We're able to pass in our map. Okay, blast tiles.retain. I don't know if we've used this yet. Maybe, I think we might have. But this closure defines what we want to keep. It's kind of like a filter, but opposite. Like, so retains only the elements specified by the predicate. Remove all elements for which this thing returns false. But it's basically a filter. I wonder if there's an advantage for one over the other. Well, no, okay, no, there's a difference though, because a filter is an iterator. Filter works on an iterator and returns back an iterator, whereas this actually modifies the vector here. So that's the big difference. It's like filtering a vector without having to do .iter, .filter, and then collect it back into a new vector. That's why. Okay. That's a big old beefy conditional there. So let's take a look at that and make sure I did it right. So our closure takes this P for point, P.x greater than 0, and P.x less than map width minus 1, and P.y greater 0, and P.y less map height minus 1. Okay. Anytime I do a big beefy closure or conditional or something like that, I want to double check. Make sure I didn't make a typo. If I'm typing it myself, it's a little different, but when I'm like copying it from something, it's more prone to error. For tile index in blast tiles.iter. So all we've done, by the way, there, that just filters out tiles that are outside of the map, right? If the tile is, it retains tiles that are greater than 0 or less than the map width, right? That's all. So it's not anything really special, but that it just lets us know that what we're going to be doing in the future here is always going to be a valid tile, or potentially valid tile. Actually, no, it is going, yeah, okay, it is going to be. I guess the reason we have to do it is because field of view will get us the walls. Yeah. It'll get us the border of the map because that's still technically part of the field of view, right? That's my current assumption there on why we have to filter it out. Okay. I said walls, I meant borders. Okay. So now we're going to look at the blast tiles.iter. So yeah, we're going to loop for tile index and blast tiles.iter. That gives us a bunch of points. So let idx equal map dot xy index, and then it's tile idx dot x, tile idx dot y. For mob in map dot tile content idx dot iter targets dot push mob. So all we're doing is, I know why we can't do this here. We're gonna need AOE, and for that we're gonna need another read storage. I didn't notice if we're mutating it yet. So we'll see if it gets mad. I'll make it a write storage, but I didn't think we're mutating it. So what we get here is blast tiles thing building these targets out. And notice the target scope is before the match statement. So what we've done here is we've done targeting for whatever kind of item it is, whether it's an area of effect or not. So then the other code that calculates targeting, we can throw all that away and use the targets that we've built up here, right? So we say, for the targeting stuff here, like if it does have a target, rather, if it does not have a target, then it's actually targeting the player, like a health potion. If it does have a target, then we check to see if it has an area of effect. If it does not have an area of effect, then we get it's a single target in tile. And I guess we know there's not going to be more than one monster standing there or whatever. But we push all the stuff in from that tile as our targets. If it does have an area of effect, we calculate the blast tiles. We remove invalid tiles, which would be the border of the map. And then for each tile that we still have, we push all the contents in. Basically the same code that we're doing here. And that gets us a whole bunch of targets. So now to get their description of what's going on, this says if there is no target, apply it to the player. If there is a target, check to see if it is an area of effect event. If it is, plot a viewshed from that point to the appropriate radius and add every entity in the target area. If it isn't, we just get the entities in the target tile. So now we need to make the effect code generic. We don't want to assume that effects are independent. Later on, we may decide that zapping something with a scroll has all manner of effects. So for healing, it looks like this. Okay. I do like generic. Generic is good. Generic sounds bad, but in coding, generic is good because it means it can be reused for lots of things. So what are we going to do here? If it heals, apply the healing. If it heals... so are we good? Yeah. If it heals, apply the healing. And we're going to do what we already have here. So match item heals none, some healer. And we're not using... Oh, it's because I made a change there. Yeah. Okay. I was like, it's underlining the wrong thing. What? So they actually don't have use item here. But I think it does show back up in a moment. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Whatever, we'll leave it. Doesn't matter. Actually, no, we'll get rid of it for the moment. If it comes back, it comes back. I'm a little torn on that one. The way it's being used in some cases is odd. So, some healer. For target, yeah, so here we go. For target, in targets.iter, and then let stats equal combat stats dot get mute star target. So we're getting a mutable reference to the stats for whatever the target is. And we cannot borrow combat stats as mutable more than once at a time. I think it's because first mutable borrow occurs here. Let's take a look at a build. First borrow, later used here. That one's a bit odd. Take a look at something. Oh, you know what it is? Entities and once use. We no longer are putting this here because we're getting it when we need it down there. Okay, that explains it. So we're gonna end up killing that here in a moment. We're just gonna move that really. Stats.hp, I32. Oh, it's gonna be in an if let as well. So we get the stats, if let sum stats equal stats. Now we'll put that in here. We've broken that out. Stats.max HP, stats.hp healer.heal amount. All that is good. And then this can go up there as a part of that as well. Okay. You use the blank healing blank HP. Damage code is actually simplified since we've already calculated targets. So item damages equal inflict damage dot get. Use item, that's correct. Used item, so in the sum, we have the used item here. And then we don't need to do the targeting stuff. So kill that. It's gonna be for mob in targets dot iter. We're gonna do the suffer damage. If entity is the player entity, we're gonna do the mob name, the item name, the game log entries. You use blank on blank, inflicting blank HP. Used item true. That is still all good, fine and dandy. So if we cargo run now, we can use magic missiles, fireball, and health. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue because it's going to be harder and harder to actually find what we need. You know what's going to be funny is if I say that and then I immediately find, damn it. If I immediately find a fireball, nope. I immediately find death apparently. Wow. Ow. Okay. What was that? That's a G. That's not what we want. That's a goblin. And that's an orc. Don't kill me, bro. I just need a damn scroll. Nope. Not today, apparently. Yeah, I didn't find any items. Brutal. Brutal odds, or did I break the code? That's the question. Here we go. There's a health potion and a lot of enemies. See, that's where the fireball would be good. Ah! There we are. So let's try this. You're 1 out of range. Okay. It should still hit all of them. Yeah, Goblin's dead, Orc is dead. Nice. It hit all the ones that were in range, rather. Cool. Well, it did its thing. We've seen the effect. I don't think I need to keep going anymore, but it actually makes our survivability way better, assuming we can find one. As we saw, it's very possible to go through the dungeon and not find anything. That's a problem. I think we should hopefully upgrade the loot table over time and make it a little bit more likely to find something. Also, why is it laggy? Why? What the hell is going on today? Something weird. I should restart my machine. Let me check something. Do I want to check? If I open Task Manager, oh yeah, it's lagging. Give me a second. There we go. I don't know if the voice broke out there. So when I open Task Manager, I don't know if it's because I have so many processes always running, but it lags when it opens. Like it takes like a good 5+ seconds to open. Because right now I have, let's see, 731,000 handles, 12,000 something threads. But what I was looking for is my uptime of 22 days and about 8 hours. Beefy. All right. Yeah, but everything seems kind of choppy today. I should restart. Okay, sorry for the distraction though. So we cargo run, we do all the cool stuff. Alrighty. So now, Confusion Scrolls. Let's add another item. Confusion Scrolls. These will target a single entity at range and make them confused for a few turns, during which time they'll do nothing. We'll start by describing what we want in the item spawning code. I like that because... Okay, we said this earlier, it's almost like a blueprint of what you want, right? And I like how this is working here because we could just say, well, I need a new component that does a thing, so I could just specify that component and then fill in the blanks where it needs to be. Now, it's not always that simple per se, but it works out fairly well. So we'll go to the spawner. And I'm going to be as lazy as always and just copy one of my existing ones. And this is going to be Confusion Scroll. And we're going to rename. The color is going to be pink and black. Favorite colors. Confusion Scroll to string. Item consumable ranged. And it doesn't inflict damage, but it does do confusion for 4 turns. And now everything is like, I don't know what confusion is, so we're gonna have to deal with that. We'll also add it to the item choices. I'm gonna go ahead and preempt this by putting confusion there. I know it doesn't know what it is, but it's fine. So item choices. What I think we should be doing is maybe making this a bit more generic so that we don't have to manually come in here and type this every time. what would be nice, not scroll. What would be nice is basically building out a list of potential things. And see, in this case, we're giving them equal chances. We did something like this in the other tutorial where we had the weighted chances, the weighted values for the random number generator, and it worked out pretty well. If I remember right, most of the maintenance for that was basically in building out the function that we built here, building out this equivalent code for a match arm. And a lot of this was taken care of because we just put it in a list basically and said, here's a list. Here's the new thing we want to add to the list. Here's its weight. And then in the match arm, here's what we do if we get that, if I'm making sense. So now we're ready to actually make one of those, but to do it, we need a component, and the component is going to be called confusion. It needs turns. Looks like that. And you know what we have to do? Well, he does mention register this time. We have to do that. So that's enough to have it appear, be triggerable, and cause targeting to happen, but nothing will happen when it's used. Now, this is more of a question to the viewer. Why is it not going to be used? Well, let's take a look. Like, I know. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate. I know why it's not, well, it's going to be used, but it's not going to like do anything. That's because it is ranged, but it doesn't inflict damage, and it doesn't do an area of effect or anything. So we don't have a component to do confusion yet, right? It's all about the component. So what we're going to do is go to the item use system, and we're going to add yet another block in here. And you know that means we're going to have to pull more stuff in. So I am not typing that one. I'm going to copy the vec as well. So we're going to make a vec called add confusion. And it says, can it pass along confusion? Note the use of scopes to escape from the borrow checker. We'll see how this works. So okay, I don't know if this matters too much where we put it, so we'll see. Let causes confusion equal confused.get use item.item. Now this is where we don't have confused, so let's come up here and just say confuzzled and give us a read storage to confused. This is getting beefy. And then we need confused up here as well. No confused? Or is it confusion? Oh, it's confusion. So then this is confusion. And then that was actually called confused. So that's good. This vector will clean itself up once we start pushing into it. So let causes confusion equal confused.get. So we get the current item, and basically we don't know if it has a confusion or not, so we're going to match on that. In the none case, we do nothing. Again, I would argue an if let would be better for that. Like the author clearly knows about if let, and this is that's basically the perfect case for it. Is when you don't care about one of the arms. That's basically one of the perfect cases for it. Used item equal false. Like I finally learned the use for it. Like I finally got used to using it, and now I want to use it everywhere. So for mob and targets.iter, add confusion dot push mob confusion dot turns. So we're actually putting a tuple in for how long they're going to be confused. Then if entity equals player entity, let mob name equal names.get mob.unwrap. You know what I just thought about? I wonder if the reason we're not... Did we give monsters the ability to pick up items yet? No, I don't think we did. I was gonna say, I wonder if that's why it sometimes feels so bare. You know, I'm gonna copy another game log because I don't feel like typing all that. You use blank on blank, confusing them. It's gonna be item name dot name, mob name dot name. Did that again. It's because I'm talking when I do it. I noticed they were white right there, and it, like on this bit here, and I was like, I know something's wrong. Didn't know what. After all of this, after this scope closes, for mob in add confusion dot iter confused dot insert mob dot zero confusion turns mob dot one. So the 0 and 1 there, that's a tuple. Meaning we put a tuple of entity and vector, or excuse me, entity and I32 into the vector. And the I32 is the number of turns, that's what we're calling it. And confusion does need to be right. Because we're actually adding new components there. Can't borrow confused as mutable because I didn't make it mutable up here too. Alrighty. So that makes us happy there, and I'm looking for where that all went. Okay, yeah. So oh, that's not it. Sorry. Yeah, so what we do, let's just break it down. I was saying we're passing an entity and an I32 tuple into add confusion, but let's break down what's going on here. So we get our causes confusion component for the current item. If there is a component, also is there used item is false, but we never set it to true. Yeah, I never see it being set to true. We're gonna put it here. I think that's a bug. I'm pretty sure that's a bug. In fact, let me check their code for the entire lesson. Confusion. They are never setting used item to true. Is it not, it is consumable. I think that's a bug. I'm going to call an audible there and say that it should be using some, similar to this. This should do the trick. It's gonna set it every time we go through the loop, but basically, I mean, if you don't want to set it every time, that's pretty inconsequential, but if you don't want to do it, you do like this. If targets dot, we could do len. No, we could do, not targets dot is empty. Then we do used item equal true. Now, I mean, now we're not setting it every single time we go through the for loop, but it's not a big deal either way. Basically, we don't want to say we're using the item if there were no targets. That's the idea. So that should make everything happy. So after catching that bug, let's continue on. For every mob in the targets.iter, we add confusion, which is just add confusion.push, which is this vector here, and we're putting in it a tuple with the mob entity and the number of turns that they're going to be confused, and that comes from the confusion component that we already have. All right, confusion.turns. And confusion, again, is the actual component that we got here. We got here, and then we extracted it with the match, with the sum here. So if the entity that's doing it is the player, then we get the mob name and the item name and we put a log in there. Put a log in the game logs, and that's all there is to it. Now, after we do that, we've basically set everything that should be confused. And I already see why we're doing some of the scoping stuff here, because we're having to get the confusion here, which is an immutable reference. And then down here, we're modifying it, which is a mutable reference. So that's important. And we say for every mob in whatever needs to add confusion, this vector here, we insert a new confusion component for that mob. And then we set it to that number of turns. Okay. Sorry, I was making sure I was seeing things right. So yeah, the entity that we put into the vector, the mob entity, and then the number of turns of confusion, which again came from the component attached to the item. So we're moving this from the item to the monster. So interestingly enough, confusion is a component that actually has two different meanings. That's what I'm trying to break down here. Oh no, it's something. Fine. Okay. Should be fine. Uh-oh. My lens cap, something popped off of my lens cap here. I will mess with it more later if I need to. I think I got it in place though. Confusion has two meanings, right? In the case of an item, confusion is telling you what like the length of confusion is going to be when you use that on something. But what we're going to end up doing, I'm almost certain, is if a confusion component is attached to a monster entity, to a mob entity, then it tells how many turns are remaining. So in this case, we're just setting that value directly in. But what we're probably going to have to do is on the monster AI, we're probably going to have to check to see if they're confused and actually decrement that value by 1 turn until it runs out and then remove the component. So we're going to end up doing some work there, I can imagine. So yeah, now we can add the confused status to anything. We should update the monster AI system to use it. So we're going to replace the loop with, that's so simple, just replace the loop. Well, let's take a look at the loop, because I don't just want to copy paste and replace a loop and kind of cheat, you know. So we have for entity, mute view shed, monster, and position. All that's the same, that's good. The first thing we're going to do in the for loop is we're going to say let mute can act equal true. Okay, and let is confused equal confused dot get. And if you're paying attention, you know this is going to be mad because we don't have confused yet. If let sum I am confused equal is confused. So we're ripping out that confused component. We're going to say I am confused dot turns, and that's why this is showing up white, by the way. So we're going to do minus equal 1. Like I said, we're going to decrement it. If I am confused dot turns less than 1, confused dot remove entity. And then we'll say can act equal false. So then they'll still be confused once it gets removed for that final turn, but then we're going to have to just say if can act and wrap all this up. Which is going to be to the end of the for loop, right? It's going to be there. There? No. Now we don't have confused, so we're going to go over here and we're going to say mute confused. And it's got to be right storage because we're actually modifying the component. Confusion. And that should be about it. Let me skim over the rest of this real quick. So we're going to do let distance, if distance, wants to melee, else if view shed, visible tiles contains player position, let path, if path success. Yeah, that's probably, I don't see why any of that would change. So when they're confused in this game, they don't wander around aimlessly, at least now. They just stand there. If you wanted to make them do something else, instead of saying can act, I mean, you could still use can act, but you could call it something a little better. I mean, you could just call it is confused, basically. Keep track, I mean, well, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But it would be an else block to this. And instead of having them do a proper like path to player and everything, you would have them just wander around randomly. You could even try to have them attack at something that's not there. You could do once to melee and have them like swing, and maybe the player's there, maybe the player's not there. So they might still be able to hit you, but it's, you know, just wild swinging or something in a random direction. You could have them do some interesting stuff there. So yeah, that's cool. Alrighty. So if this sees a confused component, it decrements the timer. If it hits 0, it removes it. It then returns, making the monster skip its turn. Well, it doesn't explicitly return. It returns because this doesn't happen. So yeah. So we'll run it and we'll take a look at it. Scoot some stuff around real quick. And this is actually going to be it. Now we just have to get lucky and find a damn confused scroll. Nothing here, okay. Or here. Nothing that I could see in there. Not going in there, okay. Is that it? What is, no, that's the fireball, isn't it? We made it pink. Damn it, I wasted a turn, didn't I? That's it. That's it. Alrighty. Let's use it on this bastard. Yoink. And so he is confused for how many turns was it? Let me go check the spawner. 4 turns. So he should have 1, 2, 3, 4. He still killed me. So I hit him a couple times before he got the attack off though. So yeah, if we take a look at it, I use it, I had to move a couple times, then I attack. Then he managed to get a hit on me because he wasn't quite dead. But I think it's clear that it was working. So I don't think we need to show anything else there. The functionality works. So yeah, if this sees a confused component, it decrements the timer. We've already read that. And that's it. That's the end. Comments, I've already kind of said, I feel like there's a lot of refactors going on in here that aren't clearly explained. At no point in this section did it actually mention... Now, as you start doing the code, by the way, it'll be obvious, like you need targets before you can iterate over them. But at no point was it mentioned here where it just says, we'll build a new section. For me, I like to put new sections at the bottom. But when I see this, I'm like, well, if we're building targets, we're going to be using them later on. So like, I can make that inference, I can make that deduction. But again, like a new developer, especially if you're pretty new, you might not make that deduction. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's, you know, it comes with experience. So that's an example of one of the issues I had with this section. And then there were other sections where we're refactoring things, and it wasn't entirely clear how something was being used. I don't, again, if we do used item, this only shows up 5 times in the entire section here, and it never actually shows the check at the end of the function with used item, where we go down here, if it's a consumable, we delete it on use. Now again, this is something that you can kind of figure out what its purpose is, but it was never explained. And I do have a problem with that. This is the first time I've had so many issues with one of the sections. But again, I don't think it's that hard to figure out, that hard to work with, but it could be very confusing to some people. And that would be just something I want to mention and raise again. But I don't want to sound like I'm overly critical. I do think it's a good tutorial. I think this was interesting. This did show a lot of things falling into place once again with the Unity component system. But again, just a couple oddities with not clearly explaining the refactors in particular. So yeah, that's it for this section. And I'm going to scroll all the way up so we can watch this scroll bar. Take a look at that scroll bar there. And as I go over to the next section, saving and loading, it gets a little bit tinier. Look again, see it there? And then if I go back to the next section, it gets even closer to that line. So, yeah, yeah, you know, I gotta say it's weird, like something about just like making things highlight over and over. It lags the camera and everything. It lags the capture, but I can play 3D games and stuff that run perfectly fine. I don't know what is up with that. The point I was trying to make is that loading and saving the game is going to be a much longer section. I can scroll, and I actually notice sometimes when I'm scrolling through, because this here is doing that, see it's causing the lag. So sometimes when I'm scrolling up and down the page, I notice that it gets laggy too. What we're going to be doing here, we have a main menu, run state. We're going to be matching on that. We're going to have a main menu here with new game, load game, and quit. And we have to write a big main menu. Okay. We're going to do Saturday, which is easy enough. We're going to have a save game state. So a couple states that are going to come in. We're serializing to JSON. We need to add an extern create Saturday. Actually, you don't. I mean, unless they're doing something funky. Shouldn't have to do that. That's an older thing. So we need to tell map to serialize itself. So we're going to derive that. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. I was looking because we've only done about 2 hours, but I think this is going to take probably longer than I want to do today. Revisiting the main menu with even more going on. Actually loading the game. Oh, we're building our own macro. That's cool. Huh. I haven't had to build many macros in Rust, but I've done it. I've done a couple goofy ones. I'll give a couple examples real quick. So macros in Rust are really powerful. They are like macros in, you know, C, C++, whatever, but on steroids. Just like, that's a common thing that you'll hear me say about Rust. A match statement in Rust is like the switch statement in C, C++, but on steroids. Macros are basically like the macros in C and C++, but on many, many steroids. So you can essentially create domain-specific languages in the macros. And we actually, you know, we use them all the time. Print line is a macro, right? The vec macro, or vec exclamation mark, that's a macro. And it basically, like any macro, it's generating a bunch of code under the hood. But what you're able to do there is kind of make your own little, again, DSL, domain-specific language, that is valid within that macro. So I've actually seen some really impressive stuff. The Slint UI, S-L-I-N-T, the Slint UI framework has their own markup language, and they have a macro in Rust that you could just put in Slint markup language. It's completely valid. Like, it's just like you're not doing anything special to it. You're not messing with data types that are, you know, Rust specific. Put in the markup language, you're good to go. They have other macros where you can do like HTML and stuff, and it's really impressive what you can achieve with macros. I've only done a few basic ones because I haven't had a lot of need for them. I did run into one weird case where I couldn't initialize an array. I wanted it to be an array, and I couldn't initialize it with something because I don't remember. So it was something up with the data type. It was big num or big int. It was a big int data type, and there's something up with it. And I ended up making a macro that did all the work for me, but that one was kind of chunky. I had a couple of fun macros I did literally just for fun, where the first one that I ever did was like ternary. Like, okay, in other languages you have the ternary operator, and you don't have that in Rust. And I was like, well, let's go ahead and just make a ternary macro. And it, you know, so it ends up being like ternary exclamation mark and then parentheses. You basically put a ternary conditional, and it works. It's actually pretty easy to build that macro. Would you ever do that? I don't know, probably not. But the other one I did that actually I found really useful, I don't remember what project it was for anymore, but it was a float range. So in Rust, you know, you can do ranges where it's like for I and 0.10, right? And you get 0 through 9. Well, I built that for floats because you can't actually do ranges over floats, because the problem is that floats have like an quote unquote infinite range between two values, right? Because you can keep adding another decimal. Like, they're not really infinite, but the thing is, you can't just say, give me a float from 0 to 1. Okay, but like how much? Like, what's your increment? Like, what are your steps that you're taking for each one? And I basically built out a macro that does that. The way it worked was essentially taking, I think it took a couple, it's been a while. I think it actually took a second parameter for increment, but it said go from point A to point B, and it used the normal range syntax. And then it also took an increment, and then it just basically under the hood converts that to integers. It like multiplies it by whatever value it needs, so those are no longer floats. It converts those to integers, and then it actually converts them back down into floats, and like just spits you an iterator of those floats. It's some weird stuff, but then it was very convenient to use, because then it's just like float range exclamation. It looked something like this. 1 second. We'll go to the end of main here. It looks something like this when I would run it. Float range 0.1.0, and then the step was a step equal. I don't know if I said step or how I did it, but I think I did something like that, or it might have just been like this, and then 0.01 or 0.1, whatever it is, right? And then what that would do is that would actually just iterate through those entire values. So then I would say float range, I could do for f in float range like that, and I'd actually have a nice for loop over it. So that's one that I built. So it shows kind of the power of what you can do with macros in Rust, because if I try to do this right now, actually, yeah, there we go. Expected integer found floating point number 0.0. I tried to do this. Here we are. The trait bound float step is not satisfied. The trait step is not implemented for float. So it looked like it was going to work for a moment, and it still looks like it's going to work, but it's actually an issue with traits. And the following other types do implement it, and it's all the integers, right? So, yep, there we go. Just a quick look at like the problem and then why I did that. I still don't remember what it was anymore that I was doing with it, but it turned out to be very useful and not very hard to implement. The trickiest part was basically saying, if I'm trying to go from 0 to 1, and I want steps of 0.1, then I multiply that by 10, and then I step by 1 each time. I don't know if that makes sense, but what I'm basically doing is trying to convert it into an iterator, into a range of ints, and then divide those back into floats, cast and divide and all kinds of weird stuff back into floats. There's a bit of an algorithm for it that I came up with, but it was fun. All right, I'm rambling, but just kind of wanted to talk about the macros and stuff and how powerful they are in Rust. It'll be fun to get into a couple of those next time, because I don't think I've definitely not built any on stream, and so I think it'll be fun to be able to do one, actually a couple it looks like, and maybe we'll see more throughout these tutorials. I should stop mousing over that stuff, it just makes it worse. So that's going to be it for this session. So I thank anyone who showed up, and I really appreciate it. If you are new and you want to see more coding streams or gameplay streams, hit the follow button. I do stream every day. Mondays and Wednesdays are coding streams. We're doing this tutorial. Every other day is gameplay. 2 streams on Saturday and Sunday. Not going to go over the gameplay schedule here. And if you're watching this on YouTube, do all the fun YouTube stuff. You can lick the like button, kick the subscribe button and notification bell, leave a comment, feedback, whatever. This was kind of a weird one. Early on in particular, I just was out of my zone at the beginning. And then there were a lot of kind of issues that I don't think, it's not really on me. It's like there's missing things in the tutorial that I tried to address. So I don't read these ahead of time or whatever. I take this as it happens. So, that was a little fun to deal with, but also hopefully it wasn't too confusing. It's definitely a feedback or whatever I would appreciate. But really looking forward to the next section here, saving and loading. We'll probably be able to do delving deeper next time as well. And then after that, it'll be the difficulty and the equipment. So that'll put us on Monday of next week. And then we'll get to the stretch goals, which we can get through pretty quickly from what I looked at before. And then after that, generating maps, which is going to be intense. I'm really excited for that. Alrighty, so that's enough of me rambling. Thank you again, anyone who checks this out, shows up live or on YouTube. And until next time, have a good day, have a good night, whatever it is, wherever you're at. Take it easy.
Oh no,